record. Okay. So basically just going to break down my week. Let me see if I can put this here. Um, or over, I'll just put it down here. Yeah. So just going to go through my week, how my week went, my trades taken, that sort of thing, and just talk through um my improvements, and of course as well, just talk through like what I believe to be the easiest opportunities for the week throughout the session, throughout London. Um, in terms of how my week went, it was basically like a break-even week, I would say. Um, so I took 4 trades, as you can see on the chart, they're here, which I'll just kind of go through. But yeah, basically a break-even week for me. So I'm just going to kick off for Monday on a bit of a time constraint because the session, I believe, is only 40 minutes. So leading into the session on Monday, the session bias was mixed for me. So just looking at the two 4-hour candles, we have got 10 o'clock open and a big bearish candle here on 2 a.m. So leading into the session then at a mixed bias, I took one trade this day, and the time of that trade was at it was at half nine, sorry, half nine. So 3.5 hours into the London session with 30 minutes to go. So let me just put this up here actually. So my approach, I was interested in buys just because of the overall higher time frame bias. I also liked how price was setting up within the range. You know, it formed a support at half 6, then a higher support at half 7. So if price breaks a resistance, then upside, in my opinion, makes more sense. So falling in line with the trend. So I got to the charts on this day at 8 a.m. So when I got to the charts, looking at price on the 30-minute, this had already established this here, right? So that was my approach. My understanding was very bullish on the higher time frame. So buying in line with that is a safe play in my opinion. On that day in terms of news, there was no real news during London session on Monday, so nothing really to pay attention to. So just with regards to my trade breakdown, just looking at my journal, so I took this trade on Monday the 19th, and I took this trade based on the 15-minute time frame. Okay, so I'm kind of just going to break that down here. And this is my trade option on Monday. Okay. Now just to kind of look at this here, in reflection, I already understood that there was an earlier opportunity. Okay. But based on how price was setting up, I was looking for a continuation based trade. So, you know, technically in and around here is Asian low in terms of how we marked that up from a correct standpoint in terms of a tactical. But, you know, going back to last week and how far price was away from the range, like the tactical Asian range, it didn't make sense for me to have my Asian low in and around here because it doesn't really create much for range. So when the next 30-minute candle formed the support down here, you just pull this in, this then became my range. Okay, so what I was looking at was I've got a resistance here, I've got a support, and then I've got this mid-range, which I sort of marked up as a mid-range support and a mid-range resistance. So that's what I had. So we've got a range established within a range. Price then breaks out of this range and creates a target up here. Price then pulls back to this resistance high, forms a support. Price then confirms the support. So at this stage, I'm looking for buys. I'm looking to get involved here to test the top end, and test the target that was created. Now, this is a position that I managed, my downside. So I actually closed in and around here, right, on this candle. When this candle opened, broke the high and pulled back, I closed my position. You know, I basically just didn't like how price was forming. I didn't like what it was saying. So I just closed the position. In reflection, looking back at this trade, I'm pleased with the decision I made to manually close because I didn't see the continuation I wanted. I didn't see what I was expecting. Um, and it was obviously a good decision to manage the downside because eventually price did hit the stop loss. So a good decision in that perspective. Price then put in the continuation and we sort of achieved that target post exit. But reflecting back on the session, the key thing that stood out to me was I was late in my entry. There was an option to buy at half eight on either the 15-minute or on the 30-minute chart, and this is what I defined as the best opportunity on Monday. Umar took a great trade, which I didn't see until after the fact, but this is because that trade was already in play by the time I got to the charts. So I was only looking for opportunities when I came to the charts above this mid-range, because again, I came to the charts at 8 o'clock and we're already pushing and breaking up here. So you could essentially play this idea of taking this buy here to target up into here. But as this is already playing out, I'm too late because I'm at the charts at 8 o'clock, right? Um, so that tells me two things. I'm obviously late. I should have been there earlier. And again, because this is playing out, I'm not just going to jump into it. I'm going to wait for a target, um, and wait for that to form, come back, trade the target. So, like, I did mention, in my approach, how breaking the resistance would give me a shot to the upside, but like I just said, I never got involved in that. And I'm asking myself like why. It was the perfect opportunity to get into a position with a solid place to manage the downside if it did come. So I took a second opportunity above the range, which ended up not playing out. So the question is, why was I not involved in the initial break? I put this down to lack of professionalism, and what I mean by that is I didn't approach the markets this morning as if I'm an elite trader, as if I am a professional trader. I had no routine. Slept past my alarm. I got to the charts late. So that's not what professional traders do. If you sort of want to carry on like one or be one, you need to start doing what they do. You need to start um getting up early and getting to the charts. So I sort of really understood that on that day, and it was sort of like I come correct the following day and the rest of the week. So I put in a bit of a structured routine in the morning, and that was the sort of idea, was to continue that going forward the rest of the week. So that's Monday. Then going on to Tuesday. Let me just see here. So the session best on Tuesday was mixed. I took one trade on Tuesday, and that trade came at about 25 to 7 in the morning. And if I just pull up the charts here, so the session best is mixed. We've got the open here, and then we've got the 2 a.m. candle. So bullish and a bearish candle. My approach to the market this morning was price is currently ranging on the 4 hour. So my trades will either come outside of this range or either end of the range. Dropping to the hourly chart, I liked how we formed a support at the bottom of the range. Um, and this gives me an opportunity to play this range. We can clearly see that when we formed the support here, we pushed up. When we come down, formed support at the bottom of the range, pushed to the top end of the range. Same thing again. We've pushed down with volume and momentum during the Asian session. We've then failed to break the low and continue, and this candle's put in a strong support. So unless there's some sharp, heavy downside, I could basically give this trade time to play out. Because again, it's sort of a 1 hour time frame. It's a bit of a higher time frame. There's a wider stop. The idea was to play up to this resistance and play up to the 4 hour. So I took this trade based off the 1 hour time frame. My understanding is prices formed the resistance on the daily time frame, and as I drop the lower time frames, price is ranging, and we're ranging within yesterday's range. So it makes sense for me to take buys from the bottom of the range. on this day again with news. There isn't much news to pay attention to. There's a little bit of Euro news at 7 a.m., a little bit of Euro news, Euro news at 9 a.m. So there's nothing substantial in terms of heavy impact. So breaking down the trade itself, um, the idea was behind the trade was simply to play the range from a 60-minute time frame. Price formed a solid support and banned from the bottom of the range. Um, and basically what I'm looking for is to play the top of the range. Price tested Asian range, it's then closed back outside. So as I'm entering this trade, this current candle's open, it's pulled down and it's wicked into this area and it's leaving this area. So as it breaks the hand, it's pushing and it's above this 1 hour support. I enter. Um, so I see that as a sign of rejection. I'm looking for continuation. So I actually closed my position around 660. So in and around here, for a small gain of about 0.25, 0.3%. Um, and the reason I closed in that position um was, let me just have a look at price on the 30-minute chart. Yeah, so I was in profit and there was 3 minutes left of the 30-minute current candle. So I just decided to close the position. I was in a profitable position and I was just happy to just close in profit, right? Price then came down with the open of the new 30-minute candle and come down back into the range, and we can kind of see basically just based off the hourly that price ended up hitting that loss, right? So I was happy enough with this in the sense that I was able to get into a profitable position and I closed in profit. Of course, the range trade didn't play out, didn't come into fruition. But one thing, just to note is based on the 30-minute chart, the buy I took on this day is from a similar position as yesterday's breakout option. The candle pattern's the same, and it's the same in a sense that there's a push, then there's some consolidation, um, and then there's continuation. So what I mean is basically price is pushed, a bit of consolidation, and then we've got the breakout and we've continued. So we're looking for the same thing where we've had a push, we've had a bit of consolidation, and we're looking for continuation. So that's one thing I was paying attention to in terms of the pattern similar. Um, and on both days, the bias is mixed on both days as well. So just reflecting on the trade, it's a trade, one that's easy to identify based on the hourly chart and one that makes sense. The only thing I might say is that it's a little bit too early into the session. However, for me, that doesn't mean the price won't continue. Um, right away when I entered, I identified how I could have improved my entry by using a lower time frame. Um, why did I trade the 1 hour over the 15? One might ask. When I seen the hourly chart and how price was setting up, I just like what I saw. I felt like I didn't need to then go down deeper into the 30 into the 15. However, after reviewing the session in the evening, the 15-minute option would have given me an improved risk to reward and still with a sensible place to manage the downside. Basically, what I mean by that is I'm taking this trade based on the 1 hour chart. Clearly see that if we go down to the 30-minute chart or even the 15, you can see that we've formed a bit of a resistance. We've then closed above the resistance. You could have taken a trade on this close or breaking the high. Stops in and around this region and play it up into here. You look at it on the 15. You can kind of see here that we've broken out, consolidated, respected the range, and then we've eventually broke. So you could have played stops in and around this region and managed on the break of this for downside. So that's how you could have improved that trade. Um, and let me just see what else I've got noted down here. Yeah. So another way I could have viewed this market on this day is from a seller's perspective. And the reason I say that is because the session bias is mixed, so you have the opportunity to buy and sell, right? There's no clear direction really with price. But if I came to the chart and I was a seller, another way to look at this is price has broken below support and the most recent structure and formed a target, right? So I could have viewed this in a perspective like this. We're moving up. We've then broken support, closed below, formed a target. We've then pulled back, and I could have played this as a triangle of love to the downside. So when this candle forms a strong lower resistance to this with volume leading into London Open, that could be an option to sell that. Okay. That's sort of what I was looking at as well, because it was a mixed bag. Well, what did price do today? What opportunities were there from a buyer's perspective and also from a seller's? So I believe that's just another perspective how I could have viewed the market on the Tuesday. I also think as well when I come to the charts, I understand that we're in a 4 hour range, right? In here. So when I'm below this, there's clean traffic to the downside. So what I potentially could have done is just recognize that and says, well, the cleaner traffic to the downside, I could wait for potential breaks of this range or just options to trade in the cleaner area. Um, I could have waited and says, well, if price breaks down, this makes sense. Although, that's okay saying that in hindsight because if volume came in or if price just decided to trend upwards, I wouldn't be basically saying this because this trade would have played out. But I believe because it's a mixed session bass, being prepared for multiple options in either direction is wise and reflecting back on this specific morning, I didn't identify options to sell below. I was just looking at playing the range because that's where price was at that specific moment. In summary, I'm really happy with my approach because it was a big improvement to the previous day. Like I say, as I came to the charts on Monday late, I had no real structure. I got into a position late when there was an easy option identified. I didn't get involved in that because I was late. So on the Tuesday, I felt a lot more clarity in the markets. And I was happy with my trade and I was happy with my management. So happy enough with Tuesday. Then going into Wednesday, um, my session pass on Wednesday was bullish. Okay, so open 2 a.m. candle. I'm looking for buys. So I mapped out a few scenarios as to how I could potentially approach buys this morning. Now, I took one trade, which was this trade, and the time of this trade was at 7 o'clock. Now, it was just key to note on this day that there was news, there was CPI, that was being released at 7. But just in terms before I kind of get into that, my sort of approach to the market from an understanding perspective was price broke out of this 4 hour range, pulled down, and formed a support. So as I get to the chart, price is on its way up. The current market position is on its way up to resistance. So this can be looked at two ways. I could look at this as a triangle to the upside, or I could look at this as this is just a pullback for more downside. Given price broke out of yesterday's range. But for that to occur, resistance would need to form. And at this point, this candle is my session candle, so there is no resistance on this time frame. Um, so just to kind of talk through my entry and my breakdown, I actually got involved in options based on the 30-minute chart on this day, and this was a buy stop. Now, I placed the buy stop above the highs because the CPI was um it was forecasted to be greater, so that should have a positive effect on the pound. We're bullish, so it supports my bias. I also I didn't get involved in a trade last week or the week before where I planned out buys and I missed the opportunity. Um, So I sort of said to myself, well, if the range is big enough between the close leading into 7 and the high, which is 23 pips, 24 pips, 25, that's enough range for me to actually place a buy stop here and get into a push. The idea is to get into a profitable position. But I actually got slipped on entry. I got slipped about 10 pips. So kind of just to talk through that. So again, the idea is just to see if I can get involved with a pop to the upside if the news is positive. The entry slipped, which meant I was in drawdown for a little bit. Price then moved quickly above my entry, and I actually closed my entry about here. Um, and the reason for that was just because, for one, I get slipped, so I'm in a bit of a I'm in at an area where I didn't expect to be in at, and price price pushed into profit, so it could easily just come back. Um, and I just decided because I'm in profit again, I can just close, right? Um, and if price moved against me, I was typically going to manage my position in below Asian, coming back in the Asian range, but that's such a big gap, and I don't really want to see if price is up here. I don't really want to see it come all the way back there. So the fact the price popped up into this region, I just closed my position. If I didn't like this risk reward is 0.65, right? This risk reward was 1 to 1 up to this resistance if I was entering where I had planned to, because I get slipped and obviously decreased. So I was just happy to just close that and get out of it. Um so that was the idea behind the CPI trade on Wednesday. So I ended up getting involved in the break of the highs with the news release. Happy with the result given it gets slipped. Reflecting back on the session, um best opportunity came on the 15-minute chart after the news at 7:30. I didn't get involved in this because I'd already taken a winning trade that day, and also considering my position for the week. Monday, I took a managed loss. Tuesday, took a managed win, sort of sitting around break even. I then take a win on Wednesday. Do I really want to throw that away and try and get involved in a secondary option when I don't need to? Not my cup of tea. The sort of option on the 15-minute I was talking about is prices pushed up from the target, pulled back. This is formed the support, higher support. We're above 4 hour support. The idea is just to play this up to here, and it would be as simple as taking an option here, stops below, push up to here. That gives you minimum 1 to 1. That's plenty. You're riding the momentum of the news. We're in a bullish bias. There's every chance that we can see more upside with this. Um, and if we start to break down, just close the trade if you're not happy with it. So that's a sort of reflection point I got from the 15-minute. So in terms of how I felt mentally today on this day, I felt great. I felt prepared. I planned all my options out. So I planned very well and I actioned based on that. And so far, the sort of new morning routine I've established, I'm really enjoying that. It's getting me primed, ready for the markets, which is the way it should be. So that is Wednesday. Going on to Thursday. Again, I'm sort of stuck for time with this. This could potentially run into another Zoom, but I'm hoping to see if we can get this done in the allocated time of 40 minutes. Um, but again, look, going into Thursday, we have a mixed bias again. Um, we can see here that we have the open, we have the 2 a.m. 4 hour candle, so a mixed bias. On my approach for this day, I'd marked out that I do prefer the idea of selling because of the previous 4 hour candle. So because this candle's basically engulfed the previous two, and it's a big bearish candle, formed a strong resistance in my opinion. So I'm looking for more continuation, and the fact that we've had failure to continue to the upside in the previous 8 hours is something I was taking into consideration. I'm also taking into consideration at this point that the fact that we have broken out, formed a target, pulled up, rejected this support, yes, we have completed this to the downside and we've then started to come up again, but we're failing to continue. So what's the chances that we can get some downside even to this support here, potential continuation, and this could become the overall still the same idea for more continuation that way. That's still an option. I favored sales over buys this morning. Um, so my understanding, given that the resistance forms on the 4 hour time frame, I think this could possibly be where we see downside. However, yesterday's daily candle formed a support, so just something to consider that I'm selling into daily support. And we're very bullish on the higher time frames. So on this day, there is not much news during the session, but we do have the official bank rates for the pound, monetary policy summary, official bank rate, and the inflation at 12. Okay, so that's coming at noon. Then we obviously have Governor Bailey speaking at 12:15. So I was thinking, well, what if I get into? There's obviously a chance for me to get into some form of downside within the session, be in and out of a trade before this all happens, right? Um, so just going to break down this trade, okay? Um, I took this trade based on the 30-minute. In reflection, I hate this trade, right? I don't like it. It's poor from a risk reward perspective. Um, it's very choppy, it's messy, but I'm just kind of going to break down the idea and thought process I had for this trade. So I entered a sell below Asian range as price is breaking. Um, and the reason is because I've seen price moving quite sharply and quite quickly. We've also had so much rejection from the top of the range, and we've had a resistance form and a resistance confirmed with a big wick to the upside and rejection. So if we start to break down, I'm expecting continuation. Um, so I thought this was initially going to be the break. Price tapped me in, and I actually closed the position about here. I closed out full here. Um, Basically, price didn't give me the impression that it was going to go down. Nor did it really give me the impression that it wanted to go up. Again, we're really ranging in here, so I didn't want to sit around and find out. So I closed the position. I put the sharp movements down to there was a speaker speaking FOMC at 9 a.m. And this is right around the time I was seeing these sharp reactions in price. Now I understand that's in relation to US news, but still could have an effect. I'm not too sure, but that's sort of what I was thinking. And I was also thinking to myself when I closed this, there's no reason why this can't play out. It might just be one of those days where price just fucks around and eventually trades down, but it just doesn't trade down nicely or smoothly. It's really choppy on its way. Um, Depending on how price moved with this break, I was actually looking to target either this 4 hour support down here, which I had marked up at the time as this, looking to trade down to here, or look to trade the overall 4 hour um play like this here. If we started the breakdown, is there a potential volume or a push that we see continuation beyond this level and down to this region? So if we started the trade down to here and we started to fuck around or stall, I might have just closed the trade. But if we just like push through straight and we're honking down, then I might look to just see how far we get to, let the momentum die off, and then maybe get out of the position. So there was two reasons, two target areas you could say as to what I was looking at. Um, but in reflection as well, there's no real reason for my stop to be all the way up here. Um, looking back at that, it's just a trade that I don't really like. It's in it, the risk reward's poor to the first target. We're ranging all day. We're feeling to break out. Um, and the range to the downside is so limited because if I look above this range here and below this support, This is clean traffic, the clear target. Trading below this, there's no real clear target. I'm trading into yesterday's Asian range. I'm also trading into a 1 hour support. If I just draw this up, this support zone that comes across, I can clearly see we've wicked into it, failed to continue, wicked into it again during the session, failed to continue, failed to continue, failed to break, popped up the upside, then we're down to the downside. So it's very indecisive. So I think based on that, it's showing me the price doesn't really want to break out. It's rejected the lows multiple times um within the session. So to me, I feel like that should tell me to be more patient. Um, close would have been a better confirmation. And if a close does come, what's the worst that can happen? You know, it would just be giving me a confirmation that potentially we could go down here. So, and that's only going to put me in a better position for downside because there's an additional confirmation. So there was lack of confirmation for this actual trade. So that is the trade breakdown. Enter on the break at 9 a.m. and close the position because they didn't like what I seen. So that's that. In reflection, I believe I should have been looking for buys on this day over sells. Um, and there's two sole reasons that stand out to me. Um, basically below Asian low, I'm selling into an hourly support zone. Its price has showed multiple times that it's failed to continue. So really, volume is what I need to get beyond that level. Along with that, we also have the news today for the pound at noon. The rates are due to increase, which is only going to be positive for the pound. So if price does break up, that could be if price starts to break up above the resistance here, that could potentially be the start of the upside move. Because if if the price is, you know, if this is the beginning of the bullish move and news is absorbed into the price, into the market positively, then that should automatically see a push to the upside. Um, so based on that, two factors, there's cleaner range above Asian range. News is predicted to be positive. So why not wait on that catalyst or indication of that and look to take buys in the direction of that? Again, the overall higher time frame bias is bullish. The news is predicted bullish. What do you expect to see? Upside. Does it not make sense to maybe buy in line with that? Okay. Um, and then again, of course, in reflection, I also feel like I should have been waiting for a stronger confirmation for sells. There really is no confirmation where I'm entering. Um, obviously structure below or a close below would be ideal. Um, and again, I felt like I was putting too much faith in if we break back in the Asian range, I can close the trade, right? You know, that shouldn't really be used as an excuse to get into a trade. Well, let me get into a trade because it can manage the downside if I don't like what I see. Like, not that I was, specifically using that, but that shouldn't be a main why, right? Why I enter. My main why should be technicals. So just a summary and reflection. I executed on a trade that I had planned, so that's a good thing. However, there were some things I overlooked, and in hindsight, my option was very risky. Even if it played out, I still think price is telling me to wait for more confirmations because we're not yet out of this range and we've rejected it multiple times. Mentally this morning, Um, I felt good, but I felt a little bit fatigued, which I just put down to the gym. And reflecting back on this day, I won't lie, price was kind of like fucking with me a little bit when it was in the range because it was like teasing from a perspective that I'm thinking, okay, my option's setting up here at 7:30, then it's not. We're not at the other end of the range. Now it's back at the bottom of the range. So is it now setting up now? But then the next minute, its price is all the way at the top of the range, it's just ranging, right? So in these moments, I see these as being like so locked in on price that I'm sort of kind of maybe blinded by what's going on. Whereas I need to maybe take a step back and realize that actually read what price is telling me. So the takeaway from today is that rather than think that, oh, this might go, I should be thinking, well, actually, what's price done up until this point? Maybe price is telling me something that it's maybe not ready to go yet, and I should maybe just take a moment to just reassess my options. Um, Jacob actually took the same trade as me, and there was really good discussion um in the live lounge with Chris and Umar. And all the sort of things I touched on was discussed in there. So it's kind of good to see that my thinking is on the same page as that. Um, but just another thing to note that Umar pointed out is, he looked at the two 4-hour candles for this day, which is this candle and this candle, and he just decided not to trade the session based on that. Um, it just doesn't really give much clarity from a higher time frame directional standpoint. Um, so I feel like that's actually quite smart. Um, Maybe something to consider going forward for similar sort of trades where you're maybe unsure as to what's going on in here. Um, so that's sort of the summary and the breakdown from Thursday. Um, so if I just then go into Friday, so Friday was a mixed session bass, which is where we have bullish candle here from the open and a big bearish candle. So kind of similar to Wednesday, where we have small bullish candle and a bigger bearish one, small bullish, bigger bearish. So on this day, I actually woke up an hour late. So I was an hour off schedule. And I was a bit out of sync, when I sat down to prep, because as I sat down to prep, um, there was a bullish setup on the 15-minute chart that was basically setting up. I could have took it, right? But because I hadn't planned properly for the session, I didn't want to just get involved because I'd rather wait for more development. And I think that's a wise decision because I know that if I had jumped in straight away and price was to go against me, I would be annoyed because I wasn't planned properly. So I took the decision not to trade and just sit back, right? Let price develop. There's potentially more options it could set up. My understanding going into this day was that yesterday's daily candle closed above resistance, which is here. So if I treat this as a trading time frame, what would I be looking for? Well, I would be looking for continuation. So drop into the 4-hour, we're sort of in this pullback phase. Um, so this candle based, if you're comparing both candles, this candle could confirm that sales make sense for you, right? So that sort of confirms that sales might be favorable for the session, but this could also be just temporary, based on the higher time frame. But because until supports form, there's no real way to say that, right, we're going to go up now. But if we start to form supports and fail to break down, that could potentially be start of that upside, which is in line with the continuation. The follow on from yesterday's previous daily close, which closed above daily resistance, and so on and so forth. On this day, in relation to news, we had a lot of news throughout the session, a lot of euro news, and a lot of pound news. We had from 8, 8:15 right through to 10. We had Euro, French PMI, German PMI, Euro PMI, um, Pound PMI, manufacturing. So quite a lot of heavy impact news on this day. So on this day I actually didn't trade. But just in the reflection, just to kind of look at how the session played out. Um, we sort of come to the session here. We push up on our resistance at the previous 4 hour yesterday, and then we start to pull down, pull back in the Asian range, and then buys do play out after London session in terms of the candle I trade, which is 6 to 10. Reflecting back on today, Friday, um, the buys played out very well today on the 15-minute time frame. So the option I didn't get involved with was setting up played out really well. They also played out really well on the 1 hour. But I wasn't involved in either of those options because I was only sitting down to prep and didn't want to jump in and take a position because I wasn't prepared. Um, so Also, just to consider there was heavy news. So just even based on the heavy news throughout the session, that could also be a factor to sit out. Um, Zoom's just telling me I've got 10 minutes left, so I'll try and wrap this up in 10 minutes. Um, but there was still obviously the possibility for options to play during the session, and selling below Asian low played out very well, which was also a setup I had planned, but I didn't pull the trigger on it, and the reason was because setup was right on 9:30, which was when the PMI was meant to be released. Um, and as soon as it did get released, it just price did shoot down. So this was the option I was looking for here. Heavy downside, momentum, target formed, pull back to Asian range, resistance formed on the 15, break below this, target into here, play an option like this. PMI gets released, we initially shoot down, big wick down, target to target, and then we continue. So this trade would have been finished in a matter of seconds. I really liked this option because it was part of my plan, but I hesitated pulling the trigger. My thinking was, what if I get slipped? I could slip the other day. Do I want to get slipped? What's my position like for the week? How I sort of interpreted the news was, if the figures are negative, I expect downside, and the reason for that was because when I look at Forex Factory, if the actual figures are greater than the forecast, this is typically good for the pound. I look at the three most recent PMIs that have come out, and the numbers have all come out below the forecast. So in simple terms, that should then have a negative effect on the pound. Maybe if I was having a better week, I could give this a shot. But I also think, why can't I have the thought process of, what if the news can actually help me achieve target? Because I already have a reason to sell. My technical bias is set up for a sell. I had planned sales below Asian range if we form a target. Because remember, on the day before, I sold without a target. I identified stronger confirmation would be wait for structure. So I waited for structure, but it just lined up with the news, and I thought the position for the week isn't great. I'm not going to take it. But what if the news can help me achieve my target? I've already got a reason to sell. Like, I could have entered a minute or two before 9:30 and just let PMI hit, let news do its thing. If it hits a target, happy days. If it doesn't, it's part of the game. If I disregard the news, for example, say there was no news at 9:30, I would have entered that sale without hesitation, because the technicals told me to do so. So it's just something to consider, something I was thinking about. Well, because typically it's always like, oh, you don't want to trade in and around news, but sometimes news can be that catalyst to actually assist your option. Um, so I also think as well there was a good option to trade here. The sort of idea I was thinking of was, well, what if I take this breakout option here below Asian low, look to target into the resistance on the 4-hour support? Why can't I do that? In reflection, I can absolutely do that. And the reason why is because there's heavy momentum. There's clear volume in the market, clearly breaking down. If we break the lows, there's clean traffic left. I can manage if price comes above Asian low. You might say, well, that's a breakout option. You said yesterday you took a breakout option yesterday and it failed. But what's the difference between Friday and Thursday? This is ranging. There's no volume. This isn't ranging. There's clear volume. After this candle prints, what direction do you expect price to go? Upside or downside? In my opinion, downside. So I can enter on a break, stops in the range somewhere above the range, and I can just manage if we start to maybe come back in or break its own high. So in reflection, I feel like that's definitely an option, that setup that I could have taken. Um, so I feel like that was definitely an option there. So just in reflection, 4 trades taken, um, 2 winners, 2 losers, roughly around break even. From an analysis perspective, my overall gain loss for that week, this week, would have been minus 2.36%. My actual gain loss was minus 0.14. So my management was obviously very good. It helped me out a lot. Easiest trades of the week. I've got 5 minutes left. I'll try and squeeze this in. So the easiest trades in the week for me was Monday. We have a mixed bass on Monday. Let me just bring on the charts here. 30 minute. Yeah. So the easiest trade for me was on Monday at 8:30 on the 30-minute chart after this candle prints. The reason why is because this is a continuation trade after prices closed above resistance with clean traffic left. And the trade is just something to note, the trade is within Asian range. So this is the trade I'm looking at here. Price then closes above resistance. Get involved in the buy. Tuesday, mixed bass again. Type of trade. Continuation based trade after price closes above resistance with clean traffic left. Same as Monday, but I have a bullish bias behind me and the trade is above the Asian range. So it's kind of the exact same where we form a little push out, consolidate for a bit, and then we continue. You can enter on the break of this resistance here, which is this. That is what you can do. Exact same pattern Tuesday or Monday. Thursday, we have a mixed bias. This again, this trades on the 30-minute chart. So I've got two options there. Easiest options for the week to push into a profitable position. On the 30-minute chart, the easiest trade for me on Thursday. I didn't put an easiest trade of the weekend on Wednesday because it's basically news based. There's not much else. Um, and again, the bass is bullish, so I'm only looking for buys. But on Thursday, I believe there's a very good trade to take on the 1 hour time frame at 9 o'clock. After this candle forms, take a buy anywhere above the zone there. Right, the reason continuation based trade after price fails to break Asian range multiple times. Already supports formed, already supports confirmed. Trade is above Asian range. We're failing to break down. Um, we also have the catalyst of the news. So if we're failing to break down and we're expecting positive bank rates, could this be the potential start of upside? Get you into a profitable position, managing the range. Easy option. And then of course Friday. Um, on Friday, session bass is mixed. Time of the trade, 7:45. 15-minute time frame. Easy. Continuation based trade after price closes above resistance. The exact same trade that played out on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday is the exact same setup across all three. You know, you look at this push, pullback, push, push, pullback, push, above resistance, push, pullback, push, above resistance. Three setups, same pattern, 30-minute, 15-minute. That's something I'm just going to pay attention to in the next week is to see, you know, is this a regular pattern it's setting up? Maybe it's something to test. But I just wanted to just end this with the easiest positions for the week. And I just feel like it's important to reflect back on the whole session and actually just look and say, well, where was the easiest moves? What made these moves so easy? Um, and was this something that happened multiple times throughout the sessions? Because if it is, it's easy. Just trade the setup, wait for the setup. So 1 minute left on the meeting. I just thought, you know what? Um, that's how I'm going to sort of do these from now on. Weekly reflection video, talk through my week, my thought process, my session summaries, and then just wrap it up with what I believe to be the easiest options on the week. So, um, I'll get this one uploaded to my to YouTube, sure, and I'll post it in the Slack anyway. Um, but yeah,